So first of all, sorry for the clickbait video title. I guess to cut straight to the point, I really wanted a Toyota Supra in a manual. You know, I'm a Toyota guy through and through. You know, from the 90s, you know, I got to enjoy you know, a lot of the cars, all the popular cars that Toyota made, and before they became really popular, you know, so like I was buying AE86s when they were $1,000, and I mean we were using them on the farm and the paddocks, and you know, then they started going up in price, and you know, had a couple of GT4s, had a couple of MR2s, lots of Starlets, little rear-wheel drive paddock hacks. I never actually bought a J Mark IV Supra because when I went to buy one, I bought an FD-RX-7 instead. I liked the look of it better, and it handled better. What I didn't know was how unreliable it would be. So in some sense, I wish I'd bought the Supra. You know, fast forward, 10, 20 years even. You know, I've had a Lexus ISF. I reckon that's probably one of the best cars I've ever owned. You know, I've owned a lot of cars. I've probably owned 50 cars. I bought, like every Japanese car fan, I bought, you know, I've been wanting the cars from the 90s to exist again, and you know, 2002, 2003 was just such a terrible turning point. I bought a GT86, sight unseen, never drove it. I was thoroughly disappointed when I took delivery of it, of how it went. You know, I understand stock cars aren't, and you know, how much performance can you expect for the money, but you know, I spent big money on that car trying to make it what I wished it was, or what I wished was available. You know, not to go into too much detail on that, but I had it supercharged at one point. I had it turbocharged. I then put a V8 in it, a Lexus V8. So, you know, you can see a common trend here. I'm very pro Toyota and pro Lexus. And anyway, it got to the point where it's, you know, now too much car. And anyway, when they announced the Supra, that's been rumoured for years, as more and more details were coming out about that, you know, I mean, it's, what is it, April 2019 now. It was really around this time last year that the rumour mill, you know, there was starting to be some credit to what was being, you know, said. And so I was keen, and you know, I was basically going to commit to buying another one sight unseen. There was just a few things that the car had to have from my perspective. And as more details ended up becoming known, I realised that it didn't have them. So the two things, probably, the first thing, which is probably the least obvious and wouldn't apply to everyone, but it applies to me, is I want a 2+2 car. You know, I need that back seat. It's not just, you know, for kids and things, but, you know, somewhere to throw a jacket, somewhere to throw. It's just a far more practical car. And when I realised that the Supra was only a two-seater, it made it a hard sell for me. Look, I mean, I probably could have gotten over that, but the one thing I couldn't get over was that, which you've probably gathered from my plate on this car, is that it wasn't offered in a manual, and that just ruined it for me. Now, look, I don't want to get into a manual auto debate. I guess it's a personal thing in some ways, but if you're like me and you want a manual car, then you don't have to explain yourself. You want what you want. I guess the hard thing for me is I was sort of thrown into a little bit of a, you know, what to buy, because, you know, I actually had a 911 this time last year, not a new one. It was a 997, and that was manual. Wasn't quite the performance that I thought it would be, but always wanted one, and I'm glad I've owned one. Again, the Lexus ISF that I mentioned earlier, fantastic car. It's a shame that they sort of made a hash of the RSF RCF, in the sense that it's a shame it wasn't lighter, because it's too heavy, and manual, obviously. But see, even the like I said, I'm a manual guy, but I could live with the ISF. I wished it was manual, but there was no other option, so I picked what I picked. I mean, some would say, well, why didn't you buy an E92 or E90 M3? And I've just, I'm not a BMW guy. I'm not a Toyota guy. And I've never thought of BMW as being, I guess, reliable cars. And it's since turned out that those M3s with their V8s, they spin bearings. I don't know which one it is, but I know that the results are catastrophic. So anyway, okay, so why do I have a BMW now? So I've literally had this only a few days, and it was when I realised that as more and more details came out about the Supra, like it's, I don't want to get into a flame war here. Lots of opinions about whether it's a Toyota or whether it's a BMW, but it's undeniable. No one can deny that the mechanicals of it are BMW. I mean, that's fairly well. It's a fact. It's an established fact. Now, what got me? The third thing that got me about the Supra, and that this might be more market dependent, but it was when they started indicating how much it was going to cost. So I guess with the only two-seater and auto only, I still at that point hadn't fully written it off, because like I said, I've got other cars. Maybe I can give up on the back seat. I really enjoyed the ISF more than I ever would have expected, so it's not like I was completely against having an auto. But it was when, and again, this will be, I'll quote figures in New Zealand dollars because that's obviously all I know. But I expected, so a GT8 6 here was $44,000. So I expected a Supra, reasonably to be 80 or 90. If it had touched 100, fair enough, I'd probably still pay it, But when they're starting to talk, when they started to indicate that it was going to be 120, I started thinking to myself, well, you're starting to get into dangerous territory there, because there's a lot, well, not a lot, but there's some real competition at that price point. You can get a Cayman for that. It's not a 911, but it's still a Porsche. And how do you compare a Supra to a Cayman? I mean, a Supra, you never want to buy the first of something because they're still working out the bugs in it. Whereas a Cayman from a brand like Porsche, how do you choose a Supra over a Cayman? But the second thing that the price made me look at, and it was actually a friend of mine, fellow car enthusiast, that made me think of this. He pointed out that the Supra has the B58 BMW engine. Now that's the same engine that's in this 2 Series, the 2 Series shape, but the 240i, I think it is. Now what's interesting about that is, one, you can get it in a manual, and two, you can, the price point is around that 90,000, about where I would have, assumed a Supra was going to be priced. And so it became a real, why would I buy a Supra with the same, they got the same engine. So why would I buy the Supra, even though I'm a Toyota fanboy? And to be honest, that was almost enough. But why would I pay so much more to be forced into a car that was auto and 2-seat only, when I could get a 240i in manual for 90, I think it was 92,000. And of course, then when I started realizing that the 240i was a better car for me, well, why don't I just spend a little bit more and get this new M2 Competition that they started talking about, June or July last year, that's got the M3 motor, so far superior to a B58. 19-inch forged wheels, massive brakes on it. Like, you can't even fit 18-inch wheels on this. The brakes are that massive. And this car was 120,000. So it was as near as makes no difference to what I was going to pay for a Supra. So how could I not buy this car? This car is what you're looking for if you want a manual Supra. Now, you've probably realised I'm not a BMW fanboy. I'm far from it. This is the first one. I've only seen friends that have had 20-year-old, 10-year-old BMWs. You know, they've never been. It's not like they're Toyota or Lexus reliable. This car's a little different. I get a 5-year warranty, so if I end up having problems, it's almost not my problem, to be honest. So a lot of that risk is taken away. But I just see this car as the car that the Supra could have been. And you'd ask yourself, okay, why don't Toyota, since they've got this relationship with BMW, get this motor, get this gearbox and put it in their shell and sell an ultimate Supra? And they might, but I don't think it'll happen, because BMW companies will share technology, but they don't share their flagship type stuff, you know. And I don't see BMW sharing M division parts and technology in the same way that you wouldn't imagine Porsche to share GT type technology. BMW don't want people buying Supras. They want people buying BMWs. They're quite happy to wholesale sell motors to Toyota, who might still sell thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these Supras. But they're not going to. Anyway, I don't think a Supra version of an M2 Competition will exist, and so that's why I bought an M2 Competition. And what's even another reason I bought an M2 Competition is because this isn't even the ultimate version of this car. It is currently, but it's already rumoured and whispers going around that so this is an M2C. There's an M2CS coming, and maybe an M2CSL. So like a throwback to the E46. Like, I mean, that's going to be priced at Porsche money. That's not comparable to a Supra at all. That's not my point. The point is that if you can justify, and I'm hoping that I can, and when this car exists, then I might jump out of this and jump into a CS or a CSL, which is an even more, how do I describe it? It's even more of what I want out of a car, out of this type of car. And so I guess the whole point of this video is to say, it's not, I didn't intend, and I still don't intend on this being a Toyota bashing session. I still like the brand. But I'm saying, if you really want a Supra manual, then you should really consider one of these.